Hello everybody, this is Simon with Let's Play Sonic 2006. It's the final video for our second character's normal mode. Silver's Silver Medal collection is maybe the most interesting because it requires what he's best at, exploration. Which is also what I want to talk about for most of the runtime of this video because the actual task itself is rather self-explanatory. You find a way onto the rooftops and then you stay there as much as possible. This requires some hovers that are tricky even if you extend them by spamming the button and open eyes and ears. As usual, some medals are quite banal and just there, while others are rather clever, like the ones underneath the bridges. The biggest issue as usual is Silver's anemic move speed, which at this point really should have gotten an upgrade. Please, just anything to spend my incredible ring valve on. Alas, we'll have to make do with frame-perfect tricks to save like half a second per activation. This still adds up, especially in the forest, which is just terrible to explore with Silver. It's too big for any character, but you really feel it with him. On to the main topic. As I've said, I want to talk about exploration. I've emphasized a lot during the course of this LP that I really like exploring, and that it's one of the things that drew me to going deeper into 06 in the first place. I wanted to poke around and find silver medals, something that barely anybody else did, because they're ultimately pointless of course, but also because of the usual issue of this game not being very good, you know? Independent of 06, however, there's two general aspects I'd like to analyze regarding exploration. Why is it fun in the first place? And why is it good to have in the context of a Sonic game? Let's start with the general idea of exploration. Like with my previous medal collection rant about what makes a Sonic stage good, it's in my opinion the evoking of a specific feeling. The stage progression and set pieces should make you say, what I just did was really awesome. And the exploration should make you say, what I just did was really clever. For me, exploration is a treasure hunt set up by the designer. They hide stuff and make it just enough of a challenge to find it that it makes you feel smart to do so. As an example from 06, one medal location I really like is in Silver's Dusty Desert. The first ball puzzle has them roll out from a separate room. When I first played the level I thought, bet there's something hidden there. There is. I felt like me and the level designer were on the same wavelength for a second, exchanged a knowing nod and a sly smile, and that was a good moment. Of course, I always like to think of the designer perspective in the games I play because things are rarely just placed randomly, so I might be biased here. But consider another example. The last silver medal in Sonic's first Kingdom Valley act is on a small separate island. You have to do a dangerous homing attack too. If you do, Sonic actually comments something like, "Aha, I knew it." You can't get any more blatant than that. The designer wanted me to find it and say the line along with Sonic. It's an unwritten contract between them and me, and we both fulfilled our side of the bargain. To give some examples of badly done exploration, Silver's Flame Core has multiple medals directly on the psychokinesis pads you need to activate to progress. There's no challenge, no trick, it feels like the designer gave up and they probably had to due to time constraints. Another issue is with the medal that requires you to kill all enemies in a room. Despite me knowing about that, it still confused me for a moment because one of the enemy groups only spawns if you jump onto a certain platform. That's both obscure and nonsensical, maybe born out of engine constraint, but overall just very silly. It doesn't make me feel clever, it makes me go, wow, that was stupid. Again, like with every puzzle, it's a fine balance to hit between too easy and too obscure. Overall, like with the set piece design that makes a Sonic level great, mini puzzles to find goodies that make you feel that burst of joy when you solve them are a great way to punctuate and elevate your experience. Now this is something that could be said for any game. But how is exploration good specifically for Sonic games? Well, so far we were mostly thinking of collectibles as the reward for exploration, especially considering the backdrop. However, there is a more subtle reward, something baked into Sonic DNA from the very first game: discovering the fast path. This is probably the biggest achievement you can get in most of these games. You jump at the right time with the right momentum and boom, you're on top of that loop. You get enough speed to really shoot out of that half pipe, and there is an entire level segment up there you're seeing for the first time, despite having played the level 10 times before. Sometimes it's just a matter of going as fast as possible, which is not really related to exploration. Quite often, however, it's asking yourself the question, hey, isn't there a platform up there I can reach? In 3D? Isn't there something behind this corner? Maybe a spring that will send me up? Finding those shortcuts, the ways to gain elevation, the enemies to bounce to and up from, that's also exploration. And it's fundamental to Sonic games. Let's tie it together. How do the paths as reward and the items as reward interact? Well, if you tie the latter to the former, of course. In practically every level in Sonic 06 there is a silver medal, or 3, that you can only get if you find the secret shortcut, stay on the upper path, etc. It's a double reward, an amplification, and it's something I personally deeply appreciate. See, I'm not much of a speedrunner. For me, pure efficiency is not its own reward. Finishing the level the fastest way doesn't give me much. S ranking, now that's more interesting, because usually it's not about pure speed, it's about finding ways to optimize point gains, about skill in not getting hit and so on. But collecting everything in the level, finding every little corner it has to offer, really get the full experience the level designer has laid out for me, that gets me going. And isn't it nice that the silver medals offer me a very clear incentive to do so? A missing one often means that I missed the top path somewhere, a shortcut is untaken, it's tantalizing. In classic Sonic I never quite know if I've seen everything, because the levels frankly are built to be zoomed through, not to be explored. 3D Sonic is much more of an exploratory experience just from the extra dimension, and it's, for me at least, much easier to get a full grasp on how a level actually looks like. Collectibles serve as a guidepost for that, a tangible reward to take the grand tour, and that's why I like them so much. Of course, that's not to say that 06 does this well. There is a huge number of issues with silver medals, from the bad examples I've already given to the fact that there is no good way to track which ones you already got, except for a total number in the menu. Especially painful when you're doing the overworld ones. However, it laid the groundwork for later 3D games, when it's quite well done indeed in my opinion. I think the red rings from Colors On are a fantastic addition to add replay value to someone like me, for whom just optimizing the gameplay isn't quite enough. And yes, I even like the vast amount of medals, books, records and so on to find in Unleashed, fight me. To wrap this up and to segue into the next step of the ELP, I'd like to draw your attention to a more subtle part of exploration design. The question of what actually constitutes a reward and how much one is worth. I can't comment on every instance, so I'll leave this up to the watcher, for Shadow's story, and if you ever rewatch the previous videos. Pay attention how much each ring box I find around the corner that is hidden under a box that spawned after killing an enemy group actually gives you. You'll find 20 ring boxes to be quite rare, and often quite risky to get. Some one-ups are trivial to get, the ones I often mocked for being band-aids of a bad level design, but others are actual rewards you have to work for. Can you spot the difference? And also, is that 5 ring box you just collected something where you feel like, wow, that was something I really earned right now? Or are you going, only 5 rings for this? That is the difference between a good and a bad reward. As I've said, Shadow's story is next. There will be some hopefully not too noticeable changes as I switch to a much more powerful computer to record them, ideally improving the whole process. While I get the inevitable kinks ironed out, I'd like to remind you of the notification bell feature. If you use that, you definitely won't miss when I start Shadow's story. And if I add some more Sonic hard mode videos to bridge the gap, they also won't fly under your radar. I got some very cool guests lined up, so stay tuned! Alright, we've just started the forest and I already ran out of everything I wanted to say. So, let's add a little bonus topic so you don't all turn the video off right here and now, not that I'd blame you. Let's talk about Speedrunning Silver's story. I've already said that I'm not much of a speedrunner myself, but I really like watching them. Like me, speedrunners love dissecting games, but while I'm happy with understanding what the designer wanted and playing that way to maximize my enjoyment, speedrunners always try to find ways of not doing what was intended, and there is nothing wrong with that. Hell, in this game the intention is often enough not well realized anyway, or it's stupid regardless of the engine's capabilities. Finding speedrun tricks in a game as unfinished as 06 can be as simple as exploiting a lack of firm boundaries, like what I did at the start of Flame Core for the S rank. Just jump to the side from before the loop part and land after it, bypassing the lengthy scripted sequence. These kinds of things could easily be argued to not be entirely unintentional. You'll always have something like this in a 3D game with full movement, and invisible walls exist to prevent the player from obvious skips, like floating directly to a lower platform at the start of Silver's part in Sonic's Kingdom Valley. So if the designer didn't put these walls in Flame Core, was that because of lack of time and testing, or because they wanted to reward players who were clever enough to figure out that the start of the level loops around? Which relates to the original topic. Ha! One could say speedrunners are the ultimate explorers of games, as they really scour every square centimeter of a level to find those coveted seconds of time saved. It goes without saying that a character built around exploration is also great for speedrunning. In fact, Silver is so good at finishing his levels much faster than intended that paradoxically his story is over much quicker than Sonic's or Shadow's, and not just because the former has one more level to play. No, with some creative use of Silver's psychokinetic abilities, he can just ignore levels entirely. The flashiest and most obviously game-breaking tricks to do this exploit Silver's ability to manipulate objects he's currently standing on, combined with the game's odd way of handling sloped surfaces, i.e. the character's feet just magnetizing to them. An older method called the telefling basically lifts an object right as Silver lands on it. This makes the object rotate with the force of Silver's impact, but because Silver is still standing on it, pushes him up as well. This creates a positive feedback loop, and if Silver manages to stay on the object, which is why it's ideally done with spheres, it pushes him up and forward. A newer, harder to pull off but much easier to control method called telethrow allows Silver to throw the object he's standing on without getting off. This works because you could always throw objects you're standing on, but that propels them down at a 45-degree angle and Silver jumps off automatically, which is incidentally probably a good way of handling getting off boxes, and why I kept dying as I tried to do that in Kingdom Valley, come to think of it. Anyway, the angle is calculated off Silver's facing angle, so if he's himself standing at 45 degrees to the ground, you throw the object forward instead. Even more oblique angles, easily possible with the magnet feed property, and it's thrown upward as well. As a bonus, with his feet being so magnetic, Silver stays on, and you fly through the air on your own self-propelled missile. The challenge and the exploration aspect comes in finding or creating an object with the correct surface angles which you can point in the right direction. It's fascinating to witness the results. Another very important series of tricks involves shotting programming on Silver's humble melee slap. Its animation often takes priority over things it really shouldn't, and while it plays, Silver's previous state doesn't change, including his speed. The first trick relates to something I didn't know existed until researching this part. You can refill Silver's action gauge in the air by holding down the attack button. This probably was meant to be a property of the Psycho Shock, but due to an oversight it works even if you don't have the ability, which is good because if you did have it you'd just slam towards the ground upon holding the button. Now by itself this isn't very exciting because it makes you stop hovering, though you can cross a lot more horizontal distance hovering down from high places like this. However, if you stun slap at the right time during the hover animation, it will play its animation in the air while letting you keep the speed of the hover. So you only drop a little bit but keep hovering forward and refill meter at the same time. This lets you cross much larger gaps than intended. Sadly, this isn't very casual friendly as it requires a frame perfect input, and if you flub it you drop and probably die. The second trick is much more interesting. You've seen me use it a lot. It's the extended teleport dash, or ETD. A reminder, you activate the teleport dash with 2 jump button inputs right after another, then a specific amount of frames later you press the attack button. Because the slap has priority, it interrupts the part of the teleport dash state that's supposed to slow you down at the end, and for the length of the slap animation you keep the speed. Because you can do ETDs as soon as you get the Heart of Wind upgrade that grants you a teleport dash, and an ETD can be activated on every one of them, you can keep practicing them throughout the game, as I did, and eventually get kinda consistent at the jump, jump, heartbeat, attack rhythm it requires. And most of what it does is speed up Silver's glacial speed a bit. But that's something, that's a lot, considering some of these distances we have to walk otherwise. However, that's not all it can do, especially in its super form. The SETD has the same rhythm to activate it, but then you hold down the button, which unfortunately would right now cause Silver to go into Psycho Shock animation, stopping dead in his tracks. However, if you were to skip getting the shock bracelet, for example by clipping through the wall next to the laser gate blocking White Acropolis, you could get teleport dash without Psycho Shock enabled. And what does holding the button instead of pushing it once do? Well, then Silver charges the melee slap in the air instead of executing it. That means the animation never plays out, so it doesn't end, and you get the teleport dash speed until you hit the ground or release the button. This not only enables you to fly really over some gaps without being bound to that pesky hover speed, it also unlocks another ability, clipping. All you need to clip through walls in many games is being on one side as the game checks for collision with the wall and being on the other side before the game checks again. The deciding factor thus is speed. You need to beat the collision check clock. As I've shown in Flame Core, Sonic can just run through some walls. As shown in Aquatic Base, he can clip with the slingshot speed of the Sky Gem. He also can use the changed homing attack animation of the White Gem to do it. SETDs let Silver keep enough speed to clip through nearly any wall in the game. I probably don't need to tell you how insanely good this is for speedrunning. What's the point I want to make with this? Well, I've made it abundantly clear that Silver is a character with a lot of potential that the game squanders at every opportunity. Speedrunners take that potential, unlock it, and add so much more to it. Many in the community call Silver the most fun character to speedrun as, also because his skill ceiling is pretty much infinite. And I think that's a pretty cool secondary career for this little hedgehog that could. Iblis still sucks though, not even speedrunners can fix that. Big thanks to Speedrunners Focus Site, whose That's Never Happened Before GDQ video I used as initial inspiration, and Gordon Ramsay, who helped fix various inaccuracies in this script. Thank you all for your attention.